The yak is back, dude. With more spooky stories from WeirdNewJersey.com, November 20th, 2001. I think we might be more or less back to Spooky Town here. Did a lot of Egomat stuff, cookie jar houses in the last episode with the Roadside Weird Side, and we talked about weird animals. So if you want more of that, or maybe some like hanging trees or something, watch the previous episodes where I talked about the hanging tree. We just hang at the tree, dog. We did boys. Me and the homies. I want to pull up the stream so I can see the chat of you beautiful goddamn people. I want to know what you people are saying, what your opinions are on these matters. What do we think about all of these things? Black Baron in the chat. In the chat. Yo, Baron, you know how to work any of these No Mercy mods? Me and Senor, our heads almost exploded. We had aneurysms last night trying to get them working. So if you know out there, Black Baron, you get in touch with me. We'll play some No Mercy. Got Wolfbite in the chat. Whoop whoop. Just me. No guys, just me. Just alone out here. Talking about cemetery safaris. Let's do the damn thing. Let me know if the screen's getting screwed up, if things aren't showing. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm barely even coherent. Bud's grave. Got another broken image here. Sure, it's very spooky. From what I remember, Bud's grave was near an old, rundown house, and there was a huge pile of toys and junk in memory of the child, Bud, that died in some untimely way. It was where all the goth punk metal kids hung out and smoked cloves, cigarettes, and various other things, before going down to a now defunct punk cafe, the Blackout, in Long Branch. From Aaron G. The legend of Bud's grave is a complicated one, and one of the most famous weird spots in New Jersey, located in the Highlands, not far from Sandy Hook. Bud's grave was a memorial to something or someone. What that was, no one seems to really know for sure. Located on the side of heavily forested hill, the site was covered with toys, stuffed animals, dolls, and assorted objects that were nailed to the trees. One legend says that it was a tribute to a boy who had died, and his father put these toys in the yard in hopes that the boy would be lured back. A strange act of grief, perhaps. Some say Bud was buried there among his toys, and others say that this was the spot where Bud was killed. Local legend has it that on some nights Bud's ghost could be witnessed playing in the pile of toys. Bud, it is said, once lived in the house across the street from the roadside tribute. The man who put these items out there actually did live across the street, but it seems that nobody ever asked him why he built this legendary monument. Bud's grave became quite a tourist attraction for the local population. Many a teenage outing called for a late night stop at Bud's grave. My brother and I would lead these tours of the grave for our bored acquaintances, said Eric Z., a Highlands resident. Over the years, the hoax was continuously challenged, and last I heard, the whole thing was a Jersey Shore prank. The old man who lived there was apparently an eccentric sort who put this shrine together as some weird goof. Don't goof on that boy. That boy died. A local elementary school was even involved with the legend. One story says that the school's children were asked by their teacher to write a story explaining why the toys and junk were put there. One of the students apparently concocted the tale about the father's sorrow over his lost son. Bud's grave was so well known by the young folks of the area that a picture of it was even featured on the album cover of the local rock band, In Between Dreams. Today, the only remnants of Bud's grave are a few odd items nailed to a tree. Sadly, it is now a mere shell of its former local legend status. Frankie Lemon. Frankie Lemon was not only the youngest teen rock star of the 50s, but one of the best male soprano lead singers ever. He formed The Teenagers in 1954 and went on to record such hits as Why Do Fools Fall in Love in 1956 and followed up with I Promise to Remember and The ABCs of Love. Lemon embarked on a solo career in 1957 and scored only one hit, Goody Goody. By that time, he was addicted to heroin, which eventually killed him in 1968. The addiction to heroin. No image of the man, lost to time, lost media. Located on Main Avenue in Clifton, you can now view Lemon's headstone, which, through the efforts of the store's owner, Ronnie I, proudly rests on imitation green grass surrounded by fake flowers. But why does this monument stand in Clifton and not in New York, where Lemon is buried in an unmarked grave? We had a benefit with a few local doo-wop groups to raise money for Frankie's gravestone, says Ronnie I, owner of Clifton Music. We raised about $1,200 and had this stone made, but we ran into legal problems when we contacted Lemon's estate. It seems the Lemon estate was not settled because a few women were claiming to be Frankie's widows. To avoid any further legal runaround, Mr. I decided to erect a monument in his store, which specializes in vintage R&B and vocal harmony groups of the 50s. One of Lemon's alleged wives said we could put it up if we gave her $400, and I said, forget it, said Ronnie. It makes a good conversation piece here, don't you think? Only we could see. Only we could know. Lost in the mists of the early 2000s. A fever dream. Little Willie and the Clown Tree. Black Baron says usually there's an option to use high-res textures in the No Mercy mod graphics options. Yeah, I did that. Now I can only use my emulator in Catalan or Greek, I think. I don't know what the hell happened. Senor wiped my save file. Fat Lardy is gone. Meth Shardy is gone. all my brilliant creations gone in the mists of time that were the early 2000s. A forgotten era. One that might have never even existed. Two legends and two Willies in one grave? How can you beat that? What if we touched Willies in the grave, in one grave? Two men, one grave. Located at the Franklin Reformed Church in Nutley is a small graveyard with the stone of a young child that simply says Little Willie. What if you died and on your gravestone they put Little Willie? Oh. Children at the church school program there say Little Willie's ghost appears occasionally in the cemetery. The children circle Willie's grave and leave gifts in hopes that he will help them get A's on their tests, said one church elder. The kids say he comes out of the grave on Halloween night. It was rumored that the dates on Willie's grave indicate that he died 1 year before he was born. Indeed, it is hard to decipher the weather-worn numerals, but we believe the dates to be correct in their sequence. Also located on the grounds is the Clown Tree, which marks the grave of a local performer known only as Weary Willie, who it is said would never smile. People would offer him money for a smile, but he never would, said an official we contacted at the church. When Weary Willie died penniless, he was buried in the graveyard with just a pine sapling to mark his final resting place. Today, the full-grown tree shades much of the tiny cemetery, bringing many smiles to many faces, I would assume. Why do you call it the Clown Tree? Some mockery? I don't understand. And we never will. Mary Ellis grave. There it is. There's the abandoned shopping mall behind it. Christ. That's where I want to be buried. I just want to be in a mall parking lot, baby. No dirt, no trees. Just the shade of the AMC movie theater that nobody ever goes in because it's haunted. The final parking place of Mary Ellis. For the past 170 years, Mary Ellis has resided on what she probably thought would always be a stately piece of property overlooking the scenic Raritan River. In actuality, though, Mary has really just been monopolizing a prime parking space for the better part of the 20th century. How poor Mary came to rest beneath the asphalt of the Lowe's Theater parking lot on Route 1 in New Brunswick is a romantic and ultimately tragic story. Not unlike a Bronte novel. The hell does that mean? As the legend goes, Mary Ellis came to New Brunswick in the 1790s to stay with her younger sister Margaret. It was about this time that she met and fell in love with a man who was a sea captain and former Revolutionary War officer. The captain sailed down the Raritan and out to sea one day, vowing that when he returned, he and Mary would be wed. He even left her his beloved horse to look after in his absence. Every day after her captain's departure, Mary would ride his horse from her sister's house on what is now Livingston Avenue down to the banks of the river to eagerly await a glimpse of her lover's returning ship. In 1813, she purchased a parcel of farmland overlooking the river from which she would maintain her daily vigil. Mary died there 14 years later in 1827, still faithfully anticipating her captain's return. She was buried on the property, along with her sister, some other family members, and according to local lore, the captain's horse. The plot, which was originally surrounded by an ornate wrought iron fence, lay in a rural, wooded setting until the 20th century. Over the years, the ownership of the land has changed hands several times, and the neighboring area has given bloom to a blight of strip malls and cut rate outlets. I almost said cute rat outlets. It doesn't make sense. Cut rate outlets. Mary's farm was paved over and for many years was the site of the Route 1 flea market. Stranded high and dry in the market parking lot, Mary's 4-foot-high grave remained adrift in a sea of tarmac and bargain hunter mobiles. Bargain hunter mobiles? Bargain hunter mobiles. Until recently, the small grassy island was enclosed by a chain-link fence and sporadically maintained by Mary's descendants. Often, though, the weeds on the plot were so tall that one could park right next to the grave without even noticing the 2.5-foot-tall marble headstone. Those who did take note of the parking lot grave have always been curious about and sometimes even inspired by it. It's been alleged that the early 1970s pop hit Brandy was really an ode to Mary. The Looking Glass, the band that wrote and recorded the song, were in fact from New Brunswick and did record other songs based on local sites. Brandy, the fine girl, according to the song, was in love with a ship captain who could not leave his true love, the sea, to marry her. Sound familiar? After the demolition of the Route 1 flea market a few years ago, the property was redeveloped and became the Lowe's Cineplex. The parking lot was regraded, making Mary's grave stand even taller than before. Still parked in a prime spot, Mary's grave has been given a new retaining wall, and a few small trees have even been planted close by. The final resting place of Mary Ellis seems to have been given a new lease. It's just too bad the new theater isn't a drive-in. Was that a joke? Drive-in? New theater? So she can't watch. She'll never see Iron Man. Pyramid Tomb. Yes, we all remember the great pharaohs of New Jersey. Both Bite and chat got a dip. Love spooky story time, though. Going to the dentist. I'm sorry about that, although I am jealous in some ways. Thanks for joining. And if you're in the chat, make sure you give me a whoop whoop. Let me know you out there. When entering the Flower Hill Cemetery of North Bergen, the first thing you'll notice is most of the hallowed ground is taken up by mausoleums, stately turn-of-the-century cemetery abodes for the one-time rich and famous. One structure that stands out from the rest is the Pyramid Mausoleum of the family Harms, a tomb in which even the pharaohs would have been proud to be interred. Pointing straight up to Ra, the pyramid stands about 20 feet tall. There is evidence of vandals chipping off pieces of the tomb's two guarding sphinxes, just like Napoleon's invading armies in the land of the pharaohs had taken pot shots at the Great Sphinx. We inquired at the main office as to the origins of the pyramid, but the owners, who just recently took over the grounds, had no prior knowledge of who built it. They did comment that no one has ever asked about it because not many people knew it was there. "Why do you want to know about it? Are you thinking of building one?" said the proprietor. We said no, but we were thinking of entering the tomb to see if any gold-laden treasures lay amongst the deceased. Local lore of the pyramid among the West New York youth claims an Egyptian king is buried inside, which may explain why the vault was sealed off from the curious teenage population. Once you travel beyond Floral Hill and its Mausoleum Road, you come upon the Hoboken Cemetery, a real thrill ride filled with skewed tombstones and narrow paths that wind up and down the overgrown hills. Only I could be buried in there. I gotta wonder if it's some Masonic thing. Gotta wonder. Singing Sam's grave. Singing Sam here. Singing Sam's grave.
Kill yourself on YouTube.
What did we get? What was that? What did that even... We got a sub. Someone subbed. Thank you out there for subscribing to my channel. I won't do it. I'm not going to do it today. Okay. Who subbed? I want to thank you. I don't know how to do it. How does anything work on here? I swear Streamlabs is supposed to tell me these things. I don't know, but thank you for subbing, whoever you are. From the late 80s to the early 90s, I was in a band called Sinocence. Now, dude, I've been streaming for a long time now. I've been streaming since like 2018, and I like have no idea how my alerts work because I don't get any. I get one every 10 streams or so. So forgive me if I have no goddamn idea what I'm doing. Can I refresh this feed? What if I do this? There's nothing. Okay, well, whatever, who cares? It's not like you paid me. From the late 80s to the early 90s, I was in a band called Sinocence. I remember once after playing a cover gig at the North End Tavern in Union for pocket money to help pay for demos. We got a little loaded at an after-hours party and were really in no mood to go home. One of our roadies was playing chauffeur for our band singer Ricky Chance and I that night. While in his Jeep, we felt we had to relieve ourselves from all the drinking we did. We looked around, the back of the Jeep was open, and we proceeded to, as the saying goes, piss like a racehorse. That must have been a sight to behold. If I could have been there, man, I would have been cheering him on. On the way home from yet another party that night, we started chanting, "Singing Sam, Singing Sam." There's a musician named Singing Sam Stevens, who's buried in the Evergreen Cemetery in Hillside near Chance's house. Ricky used to visit this particular gravesite because his real dad, who died when Ricky was a child, is buried in Louisiana. Chance used to pretend he was visiting his dad, and that kind of bridged the miles. The grave was marked with a guitar, gold records, an overhead arch, and a bench, all made of black marble with gold inlay. Anyway, when we wanted to go have drinks with Sam, so we made our roadie drive us there and wait for us. We jumped the fence, not an easy task when you're drunk and carrying a six-pack. We found the grave, took a seat in front of the guitar and cracked some cold ones, not to mention placing an open one on the tombstone for Sam. What a peaceful way to end the evening. Then came the hard part, jumping the fence without killing ourselves or getting arrested. We made it, but we were not very lucky. The car ran out of gas halfway home, and we had to push it to the first open gas station we could find. We didn't get home until 6:30 a.m., but it was worth it to watch the sunrise with Singing Sam. From Nick C. Nick C is currently a member of the band Autumn's Fall and is writing a book about his misadventures with Chance entitled How to Not Make It in the Music Business. If anyone would like more information about his forthcoming book, they can write to Nick at P.O. Box 230, Old Bridge, New Jersey, 08857. Surely not a thing anymore. I don't even get a picture. I don't even get a ghost story. I don't trust this guy at all. It's just an advertisement for the Autumn's Fall rock and roll band. Stylish ride. Located in the peaceful setting of the Linden Park Cemetery in Union County stands a monument to one young man's love of an automobile. The final resting place of Raymond C. is an impressive enough looking mausoleum adorned by marble pillars, urns, and relief sculptures of two oriental lions set into the facade. But what really puts this tomb in a luxury class by itself is the full-sized granite replica of a Mercedes-Benz 2400 diesel that is parked right out back. The car, which is an exact scale copy of the German four-door stretch sedan, was chiseled from a single block of imported stone. There it sits, fully loaded and bearing all of the appropriate manufacturer's insignias eternally, at the ready to whisk the dear departed away to the hereafter. It even has personalized license plates bearing the name Ray Tse. Ray Tse. While paying our respects at the shrine, Weird NJ met another car enthusiast who told us that Raymond had always dreamt of owning a Mercedes as a boy, but was killed in a tragic auto accident at age 17, just before receiving his driver's license. Was his family very wealthy, I asked, dumbstruck by the notion of how much this tribute must have cost. Well, I guess so, the man replied, giving one of the stone-belted radial tires a kick. But there might be some sort of financing deal. You can drive this Stone Age car, this Flintstone car. Black Baron says the dentist is the true horror. That's true. That is exactly right. That's why dentists commit suicide more than any other occupation. The shame of being a dentist. Visiting a pet cemetery in New Jersey. Our first visit to the pet cemetery found us standing among the 1,500 or so burial plots for the dearly departed, Visiting a pet cemetery is unlike any other graveyard excursion. It's just a weird place. We've located 3 pet cemeteries in New Jersey so far, but I'm sure there are many smaller ones yet to be discovered. We asked the proprietor of one cemetery, what was the strangest animal that had been interred? Well, she said, we have a gorilla buried here, but we also have chickens, chimpanzees, and horses. The burial plots range from about $250 to $750, depending on the size of the tombstone and the customizing you want to adorn it. We don't advertise this place at all, the owner told us. Most of the families that bury their pets here are from out of town. We also do not have lavish burial services here, just simple ones. Some people really want to play it up, but we don't allow that. We asked if she ever saw the Stephen King movie Pet Sematary. No, she said. I didn't think it would be a good idea. That is definitely spooky. That old sculpture or whatever of a poodle, and it's all jacked up. Looks like its eyes have been gouged out. It's covered in like mold. Who we got buried here? Coco? That's the gorilla. Sambo? That's chicken. I'm assuming. I'm just assuming. Ghosts. We'll move on to our next section of ghosts. We're looking at Annie's Road, Ghosts of the Union Hotel, Lady in White, Most Haunted House, College Ghosts, and Hooker Man. The only thing more frightening than Hooker Woman is Hooker Man. mayhem, murder, and Midgetville. The Weird NJ tour of Annie's Road. I'm glad to be back at Midgetville. I might have to go find Midgetville and do a live stream. I'll get some of the midgets, we'll get them drunk on the stream, get some super chats. You can mace one of them for reviews, right? They're a people of entertainment. They're an entertaining people. They're funny by nature. That's always the story of these Midgetvilles. Is like it's like the circus burned down and all the midgets fled into the woods. I don't know. I just said it, and now I want to elaborate on it, but it's just a fake thing I said. But there always is some like circus mishap, or you have like Midget Island in California, where like all the midgets who were in Wizard of Oz and they all got paid handsomely for it, they all went to an island and retired, the Midget Island. But something tells me like they were euthanized after that movie was made. They just weren't that useful anymore, and that's why they were never seen again. That's what they did with them back in those days. Annie's Road in Totowa. Totowa? I've never heard of this place in my life, but that's the best part of all of these rural Jersey places. Like, you don't know they exist. You don't know that rural Jersey exists until like you hear the banjos and you see like a pterodactyl fly overhead and a pack of coy wolves come out of the darkness and just maul you. You're like, oh, yep, this is a swamp of criminals, most definitely. Annie's Road in Totowa is one of New Jersey's most enduring local legends.
Kill yourself on YouTube.
You got another sub, baby? Got another sub? Who subbed? It's not telling me who's subbing. I can't clearly see it on my mini screen here. If you're out there subbing, I just want you to know that I love you. I love you so very much. Here's some nonsense about Annie's Road. Annie's Road Rage! This is in regard to your story on Annie, the ghost that haunts that eerie road. I have heard many stories about this road, and I've been there numerous times. I was told roughly the same story, that she was killed on her wedding night, but she was killed on the road and dragged along it. The first time I went there, my friends told me that there was a blood stain on the road and a splatter on the guardrail. It was there, whatever it was, and it scared the shit out of me. I have taken other friends there throughout the years and have told them the same story. There's blood all over the roads in rural New Jersey. There's too many deer and there's no predators. Except for the coy wolves. The last time I was there was roughly 2 years ago. It was around 1:30 in the morning on a Friday. I had been coming back from New York City with two friends, a girl and a guy. We were driving along that now famous stretch and my friend Tracy started to bug out. My heart is racing while typing this. Racing. As soon as we got past the blood, some kid jumped out from the riverside of the road with a hockey mask on, no joke, and started running at us. Even though it was a prankster, it scared us all very well. Excuse me. I punched the gas and took off extremely fast. I came to a screeching stop at the end by the stop sign, and right across the road was a cop. He saw me stop the way I did and was checking us out. Tracy leapt out of the car and ran over to the cop, screaming about this kid who jumped out of the woods. It was as if this was nothing new to the cop, and he sped off down the road. Well, Annie's Lane, as I have often heard it called, is a great place to bring people for a scary experience. Scared Silly, Marcus F. Lights out on Annie's Road. I am writing to tell you that myself and some friends have seen Annie's ghost on the side of the road near the Route 80 overpass. I am from West Patterson,
So I know most of the legends about the road. The most popular story about Annie is that she was decapitated after being in a car wreck with her prom date. Myself and the people I know who have seen her ghost usually were not looking for her when she appeared. When you see her, she appears to be a rather short girl who is dressed all in white, who usually wisps away shortly after appearing. Another strange thing that happens on that road is by the cemetery, where you can often see a flickering light moving around and about the graves. Supposedly, this also is linked to Annie's ghost. It is thought that if you drive down the road I can't do it, man. I can't do it. If you drive down the road at exactly 12 a.m., playing oldies music and driving with your car's lights out in the middle of the two lines, then you can see her in the rear view mirror. This we tried once a while ago. We didn't see any ghost, but trust me, it is really scary. From Purple 591, Christian name. Midnight Midget in the woodpile. I used to live in Nutley. I was originally from Detroit, and therefore new to the area. I had friends from Nutley, Belleville, Montclair, etc. Anyway, one of my good friends told me about this place where midgets lived. She swore one night she had been driving through the place when she saw a midget out chopping wood. This was around midnight. She got spooked by that, so I could never convince her to take me there, but eventually I did get someone to take me there, and I've been through it more than a few times and have seen the little people in their windows. Unfortunately, I don't know the name of the road. However, I do know it's on the same road as Annie's grave, which made Midgetville even spookier. From Guy N. Painting Annie's Road red. The legend of Annie's Road as I know it is about a girl who stood up at her prom and decided to get drunk and walk along the road. She was then mowed down by a car full of her high school drunks after the prom. Supposedly, she haunts the road at 2 a.m. if you drive the road with your headlights off. The road is very eerie and the graveyard glows. Alongside the road is a guardrail painted red where she died. On the eve of her death every year, her deranged father returns to paint it and meet with his daughter once more. Annie is supposedly buried in the graveyard, and her spirit guards all other people walking along the road. At times she will appear to speeders to warn them of what happened. If you make a right-hand turn further down the road, you'll come to Midgetville. Beware, midgets still live there. I know because they have shot at me. No joke, with tiny guns. Further down the road, you come to a spot where 3 girls hit a tree, doing 70 miles per hour, which kind of suggests being chased by something. By Lil Poe 69. Can't wait till his new mixtape drops. Ghosts of the Union Hotel. Just take a look at that real quick. If you see any ghostly images, any figures in the mirrors, let me know. Any spooky ghosts pop out, any skeletons. Forever facing the Hunterdon County Courthouse. Forever facing the Hunterdon County Courthouse, Flemington's Union Hotel stands witness to the never-ending speculation which still surrounds the trial of the century. During the height of the Lindbergh baby kidnapping murder case, the hotel's 52 rooms and even its closets were the temporary base of operations for the country's most notable journalists. Today, only the bar and restaurant, located on the building's first floor, are open to the public. The second floor houses a few offices, and the rest of the Union Hotel is the exclusive property of the building's only full-time residents, its ghosts. Recently, Weird NJ was invited to tour the vacant rooms and empty hallways of the second, third, and fourth floors, where we were told that the tenants have been a bit restless as of late. According to the current manager, ongoing construction in the historic landmark has stirred up spirits who have made their presence known by slamming doors, spinning bar stools, and generally going bump in the night. One night after closing, she told us, the bouncer locked the heavy wooden front doors in the foyer, then returned to the bar. A few of the staff were sitting around the bar having a drink when all of a sudden the locked doors flew wide open and a cold wind swept past us. When the bouncer went back out to reclose the doors, he saw a disembodied pair of children's black patent leather shoes walking up the main stairway. He freaked right out and ran across the street. Then he called us from a payphone and told us to get the hell out of the hotel right away. Another time, one of my waitresses was carrying the register drawer upstairs to the office after closing. When she reached the top of the stairs, she heard an unearthly voice humming a child's lullaby. She dropped the drawer. She dropped the drawer full of money right there on the landing and ran out of the building and never came back. It's better than a lot of hotels I've stayed in, that's for sure. The Union Hotel's manager herself, whose office is on the second floor, has also had some personal experience with the spooks. Once at about 3 o'clock in the morning, she says, I was doing the books in my office. I knew I was the only person in the building, but all of a sudden I felt another presence. I stopped what I was doing and sat back, away from my desk. There was something right there in the room with me. It came so close that I could feel the pressure of it right up against me, pushing on my chest. It was making it hard for me to breathe. I didn't feel threatened or in any danger, though, and I simply asked it to move away and leave me alone. Then it was gone, and now I regret telling whoever it was to stop, because I feel as if I may never have an encounter like that again. So, feeling the spirit up against your chest, making it hard to breathe, makes me think of, like, sleep paralysis. That's a really common thing. But it's also like we're talking about children's lullabies and stuff, so it's like baby ghost. It's a baby ghost that crawled up on your lap, yo, just wanted a hug. I don't know, it's weird. No apparitional footwear materialized the day that we visited the Union Hotel, nor did we hear any ghostly voices. Just the rustling of feathers of the many pigeons that come and go through the broken windows of the upper floors. Walking the deserted hallways, though, one can easily imagine what it must have been like there during the media circus trial of Bruno Hauptmann. Not much has changed in these empty rooms since the 1930s, and if there is a more accommodating residence for a specter to inhabit throughout eternity, we have not seen it yet. What if you were haunted by the Lindbergh baby? What would you do? The Lady in White. The White Lady legend. Many people have told me of the White Lady who haunts Branch Brook Park on the Belleville-Newark border. There are those who claim to have seen this apparition near a white-painted tree in the park. She is seen, especially on rainy nights. She is seen especially on rainy nights. The story is rather creepy. There was a teenage boy who was looking for a date for their high school prom. He met a girl who he immediately fell for and asked her to be his date. The girl happily agreed. The night of their date, they decided to take a drive through Branch Brook Park on their way to the prom. It was raining heavily. It was raining, and visibility was bad. The car suddenly began to skid out of control and crashed head-on into a tree. The boy was fine, escaping only with some minor scratches. The girl, however, was dead. Today, the tree that they crashed into is painted white in the form of a person. Witnesses have recalled seeing a lady in white next to the tree, who beckons them toward her on rainy nights. Perhaps she is still waiting for her prom date to join her. It's creepy to me, says Cheryl L. White Lady in the Mist. On foggy, rainy nights in Branch Brook Park, Newark, rumor has it that a vision of a bride stands in front of a tree known as the White Lady Tree. The legend goes that she and her new husband were killed on their wedding night after crashing into the tree while returning from their reception. My parents told me their story of driving through the park on foggy nights to see this apparition. Mom said she saw it and proceeded to get the hell out of there as fast as possible. Unfortunately, the county put a new road through the park a few years back, and the tree is no longer adjacent to the road. I am not about to wander through there at night to find it. In the following story, one of our readers compares the popular White Lady legend to that of another of New Jersey's infamous roadside specters, Totowa's Ghost of Annie. White Lady versus the Ghost of Annie, WrestleMania 2000, baby. In a cage. I had to write you because your Legend of Annie and Totowa story has been stolen from the original story, which supposedly happened in Branch Brook Park in Newark. When I was just a little girl 45 years ago, I already knew of the story. The story is the same as what you told regarding Annie, but this ghost is called, and always was called, the Lady in White. The story says that her and her groom were in their limo riding through Branch Brook Park toward their destination to take wedding pictures. The park has been a very popular place to take wedding pictures for many, many decades. Supposedly, the limo hit an ice patch and crashed into a tree where the bride was killed instantly. This young bride can be seen mostly in the evenings, and it has been said that her image appears on the tree where she was killed. Also, the story says that if you see her, you can actually see her wedding gown moving with the wind. From Laney. Most haunted house. Top 10. Number 1 of most haunted houses. Glenn Wershing is an archaeologist and runs the local historical society in the Huntsburg section of Sussex County. We visited Glenn one day inquiring about local lime kilns. During the conversation, our weird New Jersey travels came up, and Glenn told us he and his wife Jackie live in a haunted house. We were invited over, and this is their story. That's the house. It's a creepy one. Always love those multi-story houses in the middle of nowhere with no road. That's spooky, baby. Glenn says, this is the Thomas P. Hunt House, and it was built in 1835 along Bear Creek, which adjoins the property. Along the creek are ruins of mills, sawmills, distilleries, and other buildings that date back to 1780. Our driveway was once called Old Colonial Road. The house had a series of owners and was once an inn, a stagecoach shop, and home to multiple families. This was once the industrial center of the town and went by a variety of names such as Huntsburg and Hunts Mill. We moved here in 1961 with 3 children. As soon as we arrived, we knew there was something strange about the place. On the 3rd floor, we would hear footsteps going from the back of the house to the front of the house. Then a big thump! Boom! Bam! I was gonna clap into the microphone and I thought better of it. That's a bad idea, dude. It's not even a thump. I think I must have run upstairs 100 times with a flashlight to see who or what was there, but never found anything. On many occasions, too numerous. I'm trying not to say fleshlight every time I read flashlight. It's funny to me, but it gets old. It's not that funny. On many occasions, too numerous to elaborate about, we would hear footsteps coming down from the 3rd floor and stopping in front of my daughter's room. Footsteps coming right down the wall, scaring my daughters half to death. Many times when we would be out and we would come home only to find our children at the neighbor's house or out in the screen house waiting for us. They wouldn't go back into the house. I had some dogs who didn't like the 3rd floor one bit. We would continue to hear these noises, sounds like radios and a baby crying. My father and mother were all alive then and living with us, and they heard the noises also. In one instance, we were upstairs and we thought we heard the kids coming home from school because we heard the noises and the door opening and closing. But when we went downstairs, we saw the school bus pulling up the driveway, dropping the kids off. One time our daughter was on the 2nd floor and she heard her brother, whose room occupied the 3rd floor, coming down the stairs. As she was descending the stairs to the 1st floor, she heard the footsteps following right behind her. When she got to the 1st floor, she saw all of us outside and took off out of the house like a rocket. Whatever it was right behind her. Then we started having odd instances of poltergeist type. One night, Jackie and I were watching TV, sitting on the floor with some pillows and a bottle of wine. We had a nice evening, and the next morning, when we walked into the room, there on the floor was a hurricane lamp an oil painting, stacked upside down, perfectly balanced on the floor where we had been sitting. Jackie says it was odd because a hurricane lamp has 2 sections, and if it had just fallen, it wouldn't have landed like that. Glenn says another time I had misplaced my bank book and we searched all over the house for it. About a week later, I had come home and there it was, sitting right there in the bedroom. I said to Jackie, "Where did you find it?" And she said she hadn't even been upstairs, yo. She hadn't even been. Jackie says, "Those were prank things, even kind of funny. Nothing harmful." So, there was never anything that really scared you? Glenn says, "Oh yes, this gets better. We would go through this constantly. The kids' friends would be over, and they would hear the noises, and we would laugh about it. The lamps would start swinging back and forth. Then one night, my youngest daughter wakes up screaming, and at the foot of her bed was a ball of light just hanging there, in the air. So I got up and walked towards it, and it floated around the bed and stopped. I walked over to it and went right across the hall and past the bathroom. I walked towards it again and went right to my son's bedroom. I was worried because I didn't know what it was, whether it was ball lightning or St. Elmo's fire, or a ghost. Was it a bright light? Glenn says no, it was a very dull white, about the size of a basketball. Then it vanished. Let me go back a bit. We went down to Drew University to hear a lecture by the Warrens, who are ghost chasers, ghost busters, all of that. We told them about our place, and they knew all these things we were experiencing. They even told us things. They asked if we had children. We said yes, and they asked us if we had any girls reaching puberty. We said yes again, and they said that can contribute to these encounters. When someone dies, there is energy force that is left, which can manifest itself in the conscious or subconscious. It can tell you what horse to bet on. It's just a reflection of the past, a sort of wavelength that's stuck in the wall. Young children, especially girls going into puberty, exude an energy that seems to bring these things out. They also said there are 2 kinds of energy, a good force and a bad force. And these bad forces are what started happening to Jackie and my son. Jackie says, I actually only saw the ghost once, except for that ball of light. The Warrens told us that if we had left that ball of light alone, it would have manifested itself into a form. We even tried to analyze what had been happening to us and what was causing these things to occur. The main road is far away from our house, so it couldn't have been headlights. Then we thought maybe it was a burglar shining a light into the window. What we forgot to say is that most of these things would occur during the change of seasons, spring and fall. Glenn went out and tried to shine a flashlight into the window, but we knew that wasn't the case. Glenn says whatever it is, it's in the house. You're holding the October Historical Society meeting here? Jackie says yes. We decided to do that because they wanted to see the house, and I figured it would be nice for the Historical Society. I don't open the house to the public, though. What was the most recent happening in the house? Jackie says, well, the last thing that happened was about a week ago. I was working on the 3rd floor, cleaning up, and the door to my son's room just slammed shut, and it was already closed. When the room gets cold, you know they're around. Then, as I was going down the stairs, the heating unit started to shake. I ran down the stairs and shut the door. Of course, you can't keep them away anyhow, but in your mind, you'd like to. I can see they're starting to act up with the change of the season. One time, when we were asleep in the bedroom, it got very cold. It gets ice cold when these things occur. I woke about 5 in the morning, and you could just start to see things in the room. There, standing in front of Glenn's dresser, was a lady with extremely long hair, who had a flowing sort of nightgown on. I was looking at her, not trying to move because I didn't want to scare whatever it was away. I remember just barely opening my eyelids just the littlest bit, trying to see a face in the mirror. The one mirror we have in the room. I thought if I could only see the face, maybe I could figure out who this ghost was. We have some old photographs of the families that lived here before. Absolutely nothing was reflecting in the mirror. Was she transparent? Jackie says no. She was totally 3-dimensional and just gray and white. She had small features. She was just standing there looking into the mirror. Maybe it was her bedroom at one time. Glenn says the Warrens had also asked us if anyone had died here. It seems strange because everyone that has lived here loved the place. It was common for people to die in their home. That's a strange sentence. It was common for people to die in their home. It's into I can't even parse it. What's that supposed to say? I have no idea. Jackie says it wasn't like we had a murder here or anything like that. We just figured these people just weren't ready to go yet. The Warrens told us not to bring a medium or psychic in to stir things up because that usually makes things worse. Glenn says, I know something is happening in this house. I've said I don't believe in ghosts, but something is happening here. The Warrens said if they really start to bother us to give them a call and they would help us out. At that time our children had grown and started to leave and things slowed down. It used to be 3 or 4 times a week things would happen, but now it's about twice a month. Have you talked to any of the previous owners about this? Glenn says no. But none of our neighbors have ever heard of anything happening. Our son, who used to have the 3rd floor, used to go crazy with all this. He even had our minister come in and bless the house, but it didn't work. Jackie says we would never tell the kids anything that happened because we didn't want to frighten them. They were frightened enough. One time Glenn was away on travel and I was asleep. The house got bitter cold. You can't help but wake up. I felt like there was a heavy pressure in the room holding me down in the bed, and I could not get out of the bed. I remember I was screaming to try and get out of the bed, but I couldn't. I asked the kids the next day if they could hear any noise, but they said no. My screams were muffled, I guess. I woke up around 5 a.m. I believe I woke from a faint, because sometimes I don't even hear the alarm go off and my ankles had red marks in them from where I was held down. Something had actually held me down in the bed and forced me to get these bruises on my legs. Glenn says we had three or four more incidents like that happened after that. Our son said one time, when his room was on the 3rd floor, a whirlwind of cold air came into the room, pinned him to the bed, and he couldn't move. He said all sorts of wild things came into his mind. With his last bit of strength, he threw himself out of the bed, grabbed a pair of jeans, and tore out of the house into his car and spent the night at his friend's house. Jackie says you never know when or what is going to happen. The change of seasons are the only thing we relate to. The other time when I thought they were really getting to me was the time I thought we'd move out of the house. Usually you walk through the house and you hear noises and you say hi, or hi Uncle Harry. You always feel like something is around. This time though, when I went to bed, it was again one time when Glenn was away. I had awakened with something lying alongside of me, behind me. I could feel the heartbeat behind me, leaning up against me. This thing was breathing behind me, leaning up against me. I remember reaching back to touch it, and it felt like coarse hair, like an animal or dog's hair. Then it started talking through me, through my mouth. It was making a guttural voice way in the back of my throat. That scared the hell out of me. I got up and ran out of the room and stayed up all night until it was time to go to work. When that happened, I thought, it's finally reached me. It's using my body to try to talk. And I didn't want any part of that. That really scared me the most. The other time, and this was the same week, our daughter was in college, and I was sleeping in her bedroom because I didn't want to sleep in my bed, and I was awakened again with this ice-cold air. And no sooner as I opened my eyes, I felt this whack! And I was flipped over in the bed. I remember getting up out of the bed, and I heard the words, "Found you!" It was real slow. So it wasn't like I just said it. It was more like, found you. In other words, I changed bedrooms, but it made no difference. They found me. This hit was so hard that 2 days later, this yellow bruise appeared in the side of me. I mean, I was hit, just pushed right over in the bed. That's the second time I was hurt. Another force was in the house. And that's what was bothering me, that these negative forces were in the house, and it was scary. After that happened, I just tried to find a warm spot in the house where they aren't. I mean, at least they aren't there at the time. Then I thought to myself, this is foolish. I have to go to sleep. So I called up our daughter and asked if she'd mind if I came over. She said, "What's the matter? Is there somebody trying to break in?" I said, "No, it's just the house." So she said, come on over, because she knows something's occurring in that house. They put me in the guest room, and their cat came into the room and jumped into my bed, and I let out a scream. After going through all that in the house, the cat jumps on me. Come on, lady, this is your problem, not the cat's. Glenn and Jackie gave us a tour of the house and where the happenings occurred. They are currently trying to get a historic grant or declaration to designate the area a historic district. The area is rich with Indian lore and the early American Industrial Revolution. Glenn has been studying Indian artifacts since he was 5 years old. Jackie currently works with the local historical society. Both are retired. College ghosts. James in the chat throws down the first whoop whoop of the stream. That I appreciate. I am going to have to get my practice in. Whooping abound, as the gathering is less than a week? It's less than a week. Gathering the Juggalos, baby. I'm going. And if you want to support my misadventures, please go to teespring.com/store/Yakov-alive and buy shirt. Or you can send money to my Cash App or the Streamlabs link, baby. I need some money. I'll give you a reason. Let me do a little bit of shilling before I move on to college ghosts. We got some sweet new t-shirt designs. Sweet new t-shirt designs at the Yakov store. See if I can find some samples to show the people. Here's this all over Bigfoot t-shirt featuring the legendary Patty, as recorded by Patterson and Gimlin in Bluff Creek, California in 1967? 67, I think. You can pick up that beautiful baby at the Yakov store along with many other wonderful designs. Let me show you one more before we get going here. Space Buddha. You want to party? You want to party, baby? You wear that Space Buddha tee, all the girls be running up to you because they think you have drugs. If you wear that, they think you have ketamine. But no, you just bought a sweet t-shirt. Yeah, let's get rid of that crap. Let's get that junk off the screen. teespring.com/store/Yakov-alive. Buy shirt. Fresh shirt. From Shirtwood Forest. Freshly picked. From the swamps of New Jersey. Spooky college ghost. This ghost is a valedictorian. Ghosts at JC College. I went to college at Jersey City State, now New Jersey City University. Legend has it that the main tower of the school, located directly over the Margaret Williams Theater, and a few classrooms and offices, is haunted by the ghost of Margaret Williams herself. I believe she was a former professor at the school. As a former student, I was heavily active in theater, where I performed in and stage managed several shows and concerts. Subsequently, I often went into the attic above the theater, which has a door leading into the tower. Working late on props and sets, I often slept in the backstage area of the theater, and I gotta say, I've heard some pretty weird noises. Also, I've been told that the classroom under the tower, room 220, is haunted as well. I myself have experienced oddities in there. In the winter, the staff cannot get the heat to come up no matter how many new systems they install or repairs are done. In the summer, the air conditioner will cool the small room off, but right outside in the hallway, the air is at full blast. It seems to stop dead at room 220. Also, sometimes at night, if you look up at the tower, some say you can see Margaret Williams looking down at you from Tony. Guggenheim Ghost Titanic Victim. According to student Kathy McBride, Monmouth University's Guggenheim Library is haunted. Formerly the Guggenheim Summer House, the library is said to be visited by Mrs. Guggenheim, who was reported to have died on the Titanic. She has been seen on the staircase at night, and librarians who turn off the lights when they leave the premises return to find the same lights blazing. Kathy also mentioned two haunts who frequent other sites on the university's campus. The Guggenheim Theater, which was originally the stables of the estate, is haunted by a stable boy who was killed by a kick to the head from one of the horses. His girlfriend hanged herself at this incident, and people leaving the theater and those who lived behind it have reported hearing someone weeping. Reportedly, a woman living adjacent to the theater saw a ghost in the window of the theater and called the local police. While speaking to the police, she was still seeing the ghost, and the police didn't. From Babette S. Strange happenings at Montclair State. Perhaps you may be interested in investigating a little-known story that has been circulated among the students of Montclair State University for several years. Whether there is any truth to it, I am not sure, but I do know that I and a few of my friends have been witness to some pretty weird and unexplainable events at the Clove Road Apartments on the school's campus. Apparently, as the story goes, the site where the Clove Road Apartments sits used to be an ancient Native American burial ground. I do know that part of the history of Montclair, which includes several Native American groups which used to inhabit the area before it was officially settled. It could be that the story was created as a way to scare anyone new to the campus and the Clove Road Apartments. I lived in one of these apartments from 1996 with 3 other roommates. We experienced several random unexplained phenomena that to this day I often question and refrain from speaking about openly. Some of the things that occurred which are of interest include hair dryers and other electrical appliances turning on their own. Second floor lights flashing on and off when no one was upstairs. Someone knocking on bedroom and bathroom doors when only one person was known to have been in the apartment. Weird, unearthly noises being heard coming from the woods directly behind the apartments, and shadows of what we originally thought were animals, deer, lurking around the woods. Also, an unsettling feeling or nausea would overcome any one of us that discussed these weird events at length. There were times when the apartment would get unreasonably chilly, even though the thermostat was cranked up to 80 degrees. Several guests witnessed the events that plagued us if they spent long enough periods of time at the apartment. Originally, people thought that we were just making up stories to spook one another, or that we had overindulged in drinking and hallucinated these events. We, my roommates and I, began to accept that perhaps we were imagining things until we began to hear of similar stories about other apartments in the Clove Road complex. One story went so far as to claim that a girl awoke one night to see the ghost of a young man in late 18th century clothing standing over her bed and looking at her lovingly. This girl thought perhaps her roommate's boyfriend had mistaken her for her roommate and was standing at the wrong bed, until she called out to the man to tell him that he was in fact at the wrong bed, when the image suddenly vanished like mist. We all got a little freaked out after hearing that one. I did not live at Clove Road long. I moved home with my parents the following spring because of the discord that I was experiencing at the apartment with my roommates. We were all best friends and suddenly were fighting and not getting along, which may not sound like a big deal, but I attribute it to something unnatural that was affecting us. From Ico. The Trenton State College Ghost. This is a bit of a ghost story that my grandmother and uncle have both told me on different occasions. They are both graduates of Trenton State College. I am the first to get kicked out, but that's another story. There is a legend of a young girl who in the late 30s was a student of TSC and a music major. One November night, she was in the basement of the old music building, which is still in use, practicing for a recital when she was murdered. My grandmother was a freshman at the time, and she said it shook up the campus quite a bit. The following year, stories started circulating that a piano was heard playing from time to time in the basement of the music building late at night. I dismissed this at first because my grandmother also told me stories about hypnotizing chickens. Then, some years later, my uncle, a TSC student in the 50s, told me a similar story before I started there. He was not the kind of man to tell tales. During my year there, I witnessed some strange stuff. Most likely alcohol-induced, but the story lived on in the dorm, and if you wanted a co-ed in your arms late at night, you would go for a nice romantic moonlight stroll, and just happen to remember the story as you neared the music building. As I write this, I do remember the faint sound of music in the air, scared the Jesus out of me in my date, late one night. By Michael J.C. Tilly, the ghost of Centenary College. Centenary College is located in Hackettstown, New Jersey on Jefferson Street. Tilly Smith was killed in 1867. There is a memorial to her in Union Cemetery in Hackettstown on Mountain Avenue. Hackettstown itself is located off exit 19 on Interstate 80. To reach the college, make a left off the off-ramp and proceed 4 miles on Route 517 to the first stoplight. Go straight through the light and look for Jefferson Street on your left. It's the 4th or 5th left. You should be able to see the school from there. I hope I've been some help to you. So there's not even a story about a ghost. It's just how you can go. It's just assumed that this is absolutely real and you can go meet it. It's there. And that is a letter via email, anonymous. We got Photon in that chat, dude. Don't want to have that Margaret Thatcher ghost looking down on him while he's having sex in the musicatorium at the college. She can't watch. She's not allowed. Ghosts attend Drew U too. I went to Drew University Theological School and spent many years working in Seminary Hall. I never heard any mention of a ghost there, but I did have one experience. As a seminary student, I visited the chapel regularly, but usually in the evening when things were quiet and there was no one around. On this particular evening, while saying my prayers, I heard something that sounded like breathing. At first, I thought the radiator sprung a leak. I got up and checked around, but could find nothing. It stopped briefly and then started again. Then I realized it was someone or something breathing very heavily. I also felt a presence as if something or someone was watching me. Now, the chapel is not a big room and everything is fairly visible. No nooks or crannies. That was too much and I literally ran out of there. I never had that experience again in the chapel, but I did have another similar one. Asbury Hall is the apartment complex / dormitory for seminary students. There is the story that a seminary student hung himself in the attic and his ghost still haunts the building. When I heard the story, I, of course, immediately went into the attic, but neither found or could feel anything. Sometime later, I got up in the middle of the night and stopped at the water fountain on the 2nd floor. At the foot of the stairs, I saw a mist forming. I just stood there and watched it. The hall wasn't dark, nor was it steam or anything like that. I didn't wait for it to take any shape. I was definitely frightened. I had that same experience years later. Again, the middle of the night, the foot of the stairs, but this time it was different. I felt a presence, for lack of a better word, but I was not frightened this time. I suppose I had the attitude of been there, done that. I just stood there, watched, felt, and then went back to what I was doing. I never experienced anything after that. I have heard numerous stories about the ghost of Roxana Mead. Some security officers even said that they have seen her. There is a tradition at Drew that on graduation day, the horse of Francis Asbury, the statue in front of Mead Hall, is painted. I later learned that it wasn't the whole horse, only the horse's genitalia. Also in the chapel, over the altar, there is an acorn carved into the wood. The story behind that is this. When the chapel was being constructed, a squirrel is said to have gotten lost in the walls. People attempted to rescue the poor creature, but could not find him and thought he died. In memory of the squirrel, the acorn was carved by Sandy B. Ghosts of Hobart Manor at William Patterson. The Haunted Hobart House. The Haunted Hobart House. I go to William Patterson University in Wayne. There is an old mansion on campus, Hobart Manor, that houses the college president's office and administration offices. My college friends and I became fascinated with it last fall and had midnight walking trips to it. We found out from the campus police that the original family who lived there were torn apart by an affair that the wife supposedly had with a slave that worked for them. The husband supposedly killed them both in a rage. Legend is that on some nights you can see the wife walk down the staircase in a white dress and dance with her lover near the window. Also, the basement of the house was supposed to be where the husband tortured slaves, and sometimes you can see the shackles on the wall through the basement window. There's a coach house that is now in the computer department. And the story is that there is an underground passageway that slaves used to pass through, connecting to the mansion. Most of the school officials will pass it off as nothing, but I really think the campus is haunted by the family who owned the property way back then. On our trips to the house, we really didn't see anything, and just scared each other. But there is one thing that I noticed. The house did give me a feeling, and a strong one, that we weren't alone those nights. From Laura M. The Hobart Manor Ghost. There is a place I wanted to tell you about. It is at William Patterson University. The name of the building is called Hobart Manor. This building is haunted by a spirit of the wife of Garrett Augustus Hobart. Her name is Jenny Tuttle. Her spirit roams freely through the halls and rooms like no one is there. Through the halls and rooms like no one is there. She has laid dormant for a while as far as I know, but my father works at the college and has seen her numerous times. She goes from room to room cleaning as if she was still alive. Mr. Hobart was a vice president of the United States before he passed away and held numerous powerful positions in Patterson. He was the vice president of the United States? What? Garrett Hobart? Is that real? It doesn't sound real. Hold on, let me Google this. Let me Google. Garrett Hobart, Vice President of the United States. Whoa. I mean, that's definitely a thing. He was the Vice President to McKinley. Weird. That was a story by John J.B. Garrett Hobart Ghost. I want to tell you about a haunted mansion at my alma mater. You may have already done a piece on it, but here's my input anyway. Hobart Manor at William Patterson University was the former residence of Garrett Hobart, former vice president, I believe. It used to house the admissions office where I worked while attending WPC. There were always stories going through the staff. One evening, while doing a phone-a-thon, piano music was heard from upstairs. The only piano was an old 33-inch Victrola with a piano concerto record. Faces of various family members have been seen late at night in upstairs windows. Demonologists were brought in to go through the building one Halloween. They encountered 2 or 3 spirits. One of a young man reading a newspaper on the second main floor's staircase that led nowhere. The second, as I recall, was of a young girl on the 3rd floor. She kept moving quickly from room to room, avoiding them. From Kathleen R. Hooker Man! Sounds like a good place to end this stream. Come on, I want to see that Hooker Man. Close Encounters of the Hooker Man kind. There it is. Hooker Man Road, the Hooker Man House, the Hooker Man sign, the Hooker Man tree. Now here's one spook that few other New Jersey specters can hold a candle to. The Hooker Man has been swinging his ghostly lantern along the old railroad track of Flanders and Chester for as long as anyone can seem to remember. In issue number 11 of Weird New Jersey, we examine the legend and some surprising scientific explanations for this haunting phenomenon. Here are some letters from readers who have witnessed the Hooker Man firsthand. The Chester Hookman. One night we decided to drive up to the Chester tracks in several cars. We walked up to the tracks and couldn't believe our eyes and ears. Most people would think that what I am about to say is far out, but there were 12 of us to witness the event. We heard the high-pitched sound of train whistles, with the feeling that a train was coming down the old track. No trains have used the tracks for at least 8 years, and no train was in sight. From Neil S. I'm from Sussex County. I'm from Sussex County, New Jersey. And I want to tell you about my experience with the Hooker Man. 3 of my friends and I went down to Four Bridges Road in Chester to look for the Hooker Man. We parked where the railroad tracks would have crossed and headed down the abandoned bed. We got our share of headlights from cars that we could see way down the bed, you know. There he is! Oh no, it's not. Then a few minutes later, we thought a car was coming down the tracks, a cop, until the four bright lights merged into one, then headed down the bed towards us. It got real faint as it got it got real faint as it got closer. We were freaked out, but at the same time, really excited. It was the hooker man! As it came closer to us, like morons, we ran out for that foggy light. We got within about 20 feet or so, then it disappeared. We thought that was it. As we looked down the bed, past the car, it reappeared. We ran towards the car, past the car, down the bed, side of the road. It had disappeared again. This part really scared the living crap out of us. We looked back at the car and the light was doing loops around it. The light started as that foggy light, changed to a green, then bright red, then shot up about 10 feet and disappeared for good. We have never heard of this part before, and we wonder if anyone else has. 3 out of 4 of us swear on our granny's graves on what we saw. The 4th is in denial. He says the bright lights coming down the bed at first was a helicopter, then the light looping around his car was a radar detector. Go figure. That was from Don in Andover. We still don't know who or what the hooker man is. We've heard of lanterns, we've heard of swirling lights, we've heard of trains. Is it like a hobo, like a train hopper who died, or is it a guy who got hit by a train, or is it like the old conductor of the train? Don't know. Let me assure you that I've been at the hooker man's site, and on a few occasions I have seen the lights. We call it the Chester Ghost, and I'm thinking of going back there to see if I can catch a glimpse of him again. I don't think I've ever had quite an adrenaline rush like the one I got when I saw them. I've heard many people say it's just automobile lights, but what I saw was definitely not from a car. From Fred P. There used to be a Central Railroad of New Jersey line from High Bridge to Greenwood Lake Junction, where it met the Lackawanna. This line finally closed in about 1974, I think, and the tracks were ripped out west of Flanders. Part of it was recently restored to service the giant Toys R Us warehouse. The Morristown and Erie Railroad operates these tracks with their locomotives that come up from Morristown through Dover and Kenville. The line was fairly active for many years with freights and the occasional passenger excursion. Sometime in the early part of the century, a track worker was supposed to have been killed by a train. Since then, he has been haunting the old line with a lantern in the area between Flanders and High Bridge, with many sightings around Bartley and Long Valley. People see a glow in the air along the old right-of-way, which runs through the woods, and is now a hiking trail with a gas pipeline underneath it. Some say that the explanation is gas leaking from the pipeline, but people have seen the hooker man years before the pipeline was installed. I read somewhere that Rutgers University had done some tests on the tracks and that a possible reason for the lights was the same phenomenon that makes spearmint lifesavers emit sparks when you chew them in the dark. Tribioluminescence. Tribioluminescence is a photoelectrical phenomenon found in many materials, in which strain, striking the material for example, produces a flash of light. It is believed that tribioluminescence is, in some cases, just another manifestation of fluorescence or phosphorescence already present in the material and is stimulated by the strain. In the hooker man case, Rutgers speculates that there is small tremors or earthquakes happening that strain the rocks under the roadbed that cause the glow. Anyway, it's a cool recurring story. From David G., Technical Information Analyst. The Bud Lake Hook Man. One Friday night in the summer of 1994, a friend took us to an old railway crossing just off Route 46 in Bud Lake to see the light of the hooker man's lantern. We saw the light and wondered what it really was. The next day, we walked the tracks and noticed there were other road crossings and believed that was the cause of the light. The following weekend, we returned at night to finalize our assumptions. Armed with the knowledge of the other road crossings, we bravely walked down the tracks. We did see cars crossing about a half a mile down the tracks and thought we had it all figured out. We walked back to our motorcycles. That's when it happened. A light appeared on the tracks. It was higher in the air than any car or truck. It also had a different glow. The three of us tensed. The light was a little further than the road crossings and moved around sporadically. We thought, the way it moved, it was an off-road quad. But with no sound and it being too high, we knew it wasn't. Then the light appeared to be coming towards us. I still remember Cliff starting to run and Dave grabbing him and saying, "Stick together!" We walked very quickly while looking back over our shoulders. We got on the bikes and headed back to Bloomfield. The following summer, I asked Cliff if he would like to return to the tracks to figure out what it was. "Are you nuts?" he said. He then explained something I never realized. Within the next month, the three of us all had different major motorcycle accidents. I don't believe the two are related, but none of my friends have been back since. From Garrett K. And that was the ghosts section of the Weird NJ website from November 20th, 2001. Next time we will read from Roads Less Traveled, Spooky Roads. This is actually a really good section. We get back into like clan rallies and Satanists. It's good material, what can we say? So I will remind all of you once again, teespring.com/stores/yakov-alive, buy shirt, freshly picked from Shirtwood Forest in New Jersey. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate every single one of you. Photon out there accusing these people of cruising. Dude, look. It ain't cruising when it's basically make-out point anyway. We had Al Ball in the chat. We got a whoop from Al Ball. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you, one and all. God bless you. I'll see you in Ohio.